Well, from reading Invincible, I learned that childhood domestic violence was a thing. It sounds weird, but I actually never knew it was a thing. I thought it was just something that happened, like you grew up, it happened and it's over. And reading the book helped me realize that it wasn't, and that I had a lot of issues that I really needed to deal with. The book helped me learn and discover that I'm not alone and that there is a way to get through it. Reading Invincible helped me in two ways. Learning about childhood domestic violence and reading Invincible helped me realize that it's okay to talk about it, and that actually started my healing process. And the second thing was, it's not something to be embarrassed about, rather it's something to be proud of, because I went through something pretty terrible at a really young age and have been able to be a victor and not a victim in this situation. Since reading Invincible and working with CDV, I think my thinking has changed like 180%. Like, it's done a complete flip turn, because my childhood used to be something I was really embarrassed about. But since reading Invincible and, you know, starting on my journey to learn the truths and cultivate them in my life, I realized that it's such an asset. Like, I am so grateful. Growing up, how I did really made me who I am today. My daily thoughts and actions and my daily routine is completely different since I've read Invincible. I had already started a journey to learn like how to love myself and figure out, basically learn who I am. And, you know, reading Invincible really set me on that path, because it gave me a guide with the truths and the lies. And so every time the lies surface themselves in my life, I have the truth. So now it's like I have something to counteract them. So instead of being overcome by all of these angry, hurtful, sad feelings, I kind of stop, get reset, think about it, I evaluate, and then I move forward. I believe growing up with childhood domestic violence affects everything. Before you have a name to call it, before you even know what it is, you're carrying around all this hurt and this pain and this anger, but you don't know what it is. By discovering CDV and reading Invincible, I now have a name for it, and I've been able to identify a lot of areas in my life that it does affect, primarily everything. But the main ones are my relationships with myself and with other people. It's hard for me to trust people, and so I'm really skeptical of opportunities of people being nice and wanting to do things for me and loving me. It's really hard for me to accept love because I'm not sure if it's safe. And another one is just trusting myself, because I used to believe that growing up with CDV made me less than, and that it's something I should be ashamed of, and I'm unworthy for all of these great things that are happening in my life. My story was featured in chapter 5, Alone to Trusting. The biggest lie that I struggle with, besides alone, is worthless, is feeling worthless, like feeling not good enough. The first time my stepdad ever hit my mom, I promised myself that I would never put myself or my future kids in that same situation. So ever since I was little, I've had this ridiculous drive and passion to be the best, to be successful. I studied really hard to do well in school. I practiced really hard in all the sports I was in. I tried so hard to be the best at everything. I knew in order to get out of the situation, I had to go to college, and I had to get a good job, and I had to take very good care of myself. But at the end of the day, I still struggle with feeling good enough. Like, no matter what I accomplish, there's always the little question in the back of my mind, like, is it enough? Will it ever be enough? And then the other lie that I struggle with is feeling guilty, because I always felt that it was my fault, that my mom and my stepdad fought. If I could have just protected her better, or if I could just convince her that we should leave and that we don't need to be with him, if I had just tried harder or been a better daughter, then she wouldn't need him. And feeling guilty and feeling like you're the root for everything is pretty tough. My turning point was whenever I realized that childhood domestic violence was a thing, that it was still affecting me. I grew up with it, and I closed the door on it whenever I graduated high school, went to college. My parents were no longer fighting, so I thought it was over. And then I discovered CDB, and I started researching, and I realized that it really did affect my life still, and all my relationships, the way I thought about life and thought about myself. And I also realized that I wasn't alone, and that I had people to go through this journey with me. I've realized the triggers in my life and when the thoughts are the most prevalent, and been able to work on them. If I don't do anything else, I'm enough. Every morning when I wake up, I'm worthy and I'm enough. God made me the exact way I'm supposed to be. And as long as I'm, living a life of purpose and trying to help other people and loving, then I'll always be enough. I don't have to accomplish things to be considered good enough. I work to overcome the alone lie and cultivate the trusting truth daily by communication. Communication is key. With myself, I journal to help keep my thoughts in check and just make sure that, I'm not taking a situation out of context or automatically assuming negative intent or intent by somebody else. And then communication with friends and family. Like if I feel a trigger and I want to withdraw, I just talk to them like, hey, when you said that, you really hurt my feelings. And then we talk about it. And most of the time, they didn't even mean to do it. Or if they did, they apologize and we move forward. I work to overcome the sad lie and cultivate the grateful truth by being grateful. When I wake up in the morning, I think of 10 things that I'm grateful for. And that can be that I woke up this morning, that there's another beautiful day, or people in my life, like my friends, my family, my loved ones, opportunities. I work to overcome the angry lie and cultivate the passionate truth by giving myself space. So whenever I get really angry or get really upset, I allow the feelings to come, and then I evaluate them, and then I channel into something positive. Instead of letting it overwhelm me, just letting it burn and simmer and keeping just that negativity with me all day, I channel into something else. I either try something new like painting, or I love cooking. I cook, I do yoga, I journal, I go exercise. Exercise is a great stress reliever, especially for anger. You can't stop the feelings from coming, but you can choose how to respond to them. I work to overcome the guilty lie and cultivate the free truth by letting myself be free. It's like I no longer have to hide who I am. I'm no longer bound by these imaginary things, these imaginary ropes that I thought that I had. Like I don't have to be ashamed. I think the biggest part to help me feel free was me telling my story and me being willing to open up about something that I am normally really guarded and closed off about. And the key to that was realizing that it wasn't my fault. Nothing I could have done and nothing I can do can change what happened. I couldn't have done anything, and everything truly happens for a reason. I work to overcome the fearful lie and cultivate the confident truth by speaking love to myself every single day. I try to experience new things and travel. The main part of that though is being healthy in every aspect of my life. Like I try to take care of my mind, my body, my spirit, my soul, like every single part. I spend time loving on me and cultivating things that I enjoy. I think another big part about feeling confident is making sure you have the right people in your life, people who love me and who speak life into me every single day. Like your inner circle, the people who you choose to be around and open up to, that affects you so much. Having my story featured in Invincible, and being able to share my story with other people has meant the world. Like sharing my story was the first step on my journey to healing, and it helped me become free from a cage I never knew I was in. Sharing my story and having it featured has helped me be free. And it's so liberating to know that life doesn't have to be like that, and that you can use it to become so much more. Sharing my story has allowed me to talk to others about CDV, and in the process I've had friends tell me that they grew up with CDV. I've had family members open up about experiences I never knew. So sharing my story has helped other people open up, and sharing my story has also helped me in my relationships, like immensely. Like my relationships, from friends to romantic to family to business to everything. Like it's just, I didn't know relationships could be this good. I didn't know life could be this good. And owning my story and realizing, you know, that everything happens for a reason, that I am who I am today because it happened, has helped me just to chase my dreams 10 times harder than I ever have before. Contributing my story to Invincible and seeing it come to life was really difficult at first, because I had to own something that I had been ashamed of my whole life. Like something that I went to great lengths to hide was now out there for the world to see, and that was really hard. And I also had to face all of those emotions and the thoughts, and I had to relive that pain. But sharing my story was also easy because it was freeing. I would recommend Invincible to people who grew up with domestic violence, or people who care about people who grew up with domestic violence, because it changed my life. It's really faux pas in society to talk about things that happen behind closed doors, but it's so necessary, and it acts as kind of a comfort and a guide along the way. Like even if you don't have someone to talk to about what's going on, or you don't feel comfortable yet, Invincible can still be a guide. And I think it also gives great insight to why people who grew up with domestic violence think the way they do, why they feel the way they do. You know, for social workers, for therapists, for teachers, for, you know, someone who may be in a relationship with someone who grew up with CDV and they don't understand them, I think that Invincible is such a great resource. Like, it changed my life.